I've already laid the foundation. Just keep pushing the idea that the Jones plantation represents safety, prosperity, and freedom. And you will win the next election with the message of rewarding hard work.
I just wish we could do it the old way. It's simpler, it's more honest.
You can control a man for a period with brute violence, but you cannot truly own a man unless he thinks your word is law and that he must obey, and is virtuous for doing so.
From Dallas, Texas, this is Anarchast.
Did you hear those words? This movie is so cool. It's so powerful. It's everything we've been waiting for. I hope that everyone watching this has seen it, because we might get into some spoilers later, but not yet. We'll warn you before we do. Welcome to the show, Larken, Rose, and Amanda. You're a little squished. I'm gonna have to fix that. Welcome, squished people.
Yeah, we will squish together. We'll center the squishedness.
Oh yeah, I'm taking up Mr. Smith. I'm taking up a disproportionately large percentage. Let's see. We'll just kick me out of the way. How you guys doing? How you been?
Good,
actually, yeah.
Overwhelmed, but in a good way, like with useful stuff rather than just stressful, annoying stuff.
Overwhelmed with the movie and like premiering a movie and going around and watching it with people, or overwhelming how?
Promoting it, and also like working on other projects. I'm now working more on the Mirror, which is a completely other topic. But mostly promoting it and arranging interviews with as many people as we can and doing all that fun stuff, because now that we have a movie, we want to get people to talk about it.
It's so cool. It's so cool, man. Dude, the movie. I am so proud for you. Like, well done. You did it. You did the thing that libertarians so rarely do, which is actually produce some big media in this way that has a budget and stuff behind it. So, like, well done. Man, I'm so proud.
Yeah, and mostly that was other people who knew what they were doing. Like, I wrote it, and then it was in other people's hands.
Fair enough.
I mean, I was doing rewrites on the set and stuff like that, but it's like, thankfully, there's lots of other people who each know their own little skill set and made a stinking movie out of a. I mean, it's weird to write a script and then watch it come to life that much, because there's only so much life you can have with text on a page. Like, people can use their imagination, but watching all the cast members make it real, make the characters real, make the situations real. That was so cool to watch as the one who wrote it. It's like, and sometimes I actually had to check. It was like, whoa, that was such an awesome exchange. Did I actually write it that way? because it comes across so much more genuine and impactful coming from people who know how to act playing the parts instead of just words on a page.
I will say one thing that's really cool to see happen is watching a movie get made where, unlike with Hollywood and big budget films where there's so much money and so much time that you have an issue of waste and you have an issue of replaceability almost, or quality lacking these days. This is the opposite, but the result is, in the struggle of having, not the same budget or the same time, every single individual that made this come to fruition, including every single donor that donated to this movie, and every cast member and every crew member and the lighting and the makeup people and everything that did this, like Andrew and Doug, his assistant, and just every person. There's not a single thing that happened in the course of making this movie that wasn't absolutely like necessary and needed to happen to make this movie happen. It's like a bunch of perfect miracles had to just barely be pulled off by people who really cared, and every individual involved in this had to care to make it happen. And that includes all the donors, by the way, because the Liberty Movement funded this. So
I feel
because without that, it wouldn't happen.
I feel like this is a bit of a victory lap show, because we've interviewed you 3 or 4 times through at the very early stages, then the kind of in progress stage. Then we did if I do say so myself, we did the best sort of behind the scenes, tell us the secrets of the movie production interview at Anarchapulco this past year. We talked for a good long while. If you guys want to know a lot of the nitty gritty behind the scenes stuff, that was, I think, the best interview I've seen, if I do say so myself, of that stuff out there. Go check it out on this channel, Anarchast. You can find it. So now, and that was right before I got to see it at Anarchapulco, which was awesome. I've now seen 3 separate versions of the movie. I feel especially privileged. And so we did that interview. Now the movie's out. People can see it. Everyone can go see it. Links in the description to everything that we're talking about here today. Larken, why don't you tell us about the 3 links that we put into the description for you?
First of all, there's a Dallas screening like a week from today on the 26th. We're having a screening in Dallas, and we will be there, and Andrew Treglia will be there, and who's the director, and Mr. Jones, Lee Gallman, will be there. I believe Charles will be there. I don't want to all the way promise that because I'm not all the way sure, but I think he's the guy who played Charles in the movie. And there may be a couple other cast members that I'm not sure about. But we're going to do the thing where you have a meet and greet for like a half hour before the show. This is like an afternoon. It's like 3 p.m. matinee thing on Saturday, week from today. And then afterwards have question and answer for like an hour or whatever, the way we usually do. So it'll be a fun time to hang out and not only watch the thing, but be able to sort of have that shared experience and bring along people that don't know anything about it. So that's first link. Second link is for the online version of the movie, which is jonesplantationfilm.com. You can buy the normal version of the movie for like $10. I think for $15 you get the normal version, and you also get a director's commentary version where Andrew and I went through the whole thing, giving our commentary on ideas and things going on behind the scenes and stuff. And then for $20 you get both of them and the watch party thing we did where there was back and forth and we answered questions, and we had we had Maurice Jones, who plays Mr. Smith, having some back and forth. And so that was a fun time. It started with some technical issues, but once it got rolling, it was a little better.
It was like a rough getting off the ground for a split second there, and we were a little worried, but then it went off without a hitch.
And I think our chat went on for longer than the movie did, chat afterwards.
Yeah.
And then the final link is there is also an upcoming novel of the Jones Plantation, and probably in our discussion we'll get into why on earth there's a novel of it, because I know we're going to cover that on this show, and that's thejonesplantation.com. And astute observers will notice the word "the" is in the title of the novel. It is not in the title of the movie. Haha. So that's
tricky. I'm so excited about the novel. Okay, look, if you're watching this and don't know about the beginnings of the Jones Plantation, you can go back and watch previous videos. The summary is that it was I don't know, like a 10-minute or so long animated short on YouTube that now has millions of views, right? What is it up to? Do you remember? Do you know?
A lot.
I forget how many 100,000, and a bunch of people have like posted it on their own, so I'd have to like go count them and add them up and stuff. So it's probably pushing 1 million by now. I don't remember exactly.
Green Country just said, "Well, you got to have a novel that we can base the miniseries on later." Like, we're gonna build a media empire based on this. It's awesome.
Starting for me.
Yeah, Jones Plantation will become its own production company. There you go.
Jones Plantation Inc.
There, yeah.
So I'm trying to think back to our previous interview at Anarchapulco, and I said I think my main fear of how the movie might be received, knowing the story, is let me put this in words carefully, because it's the language is so sensitive these days that I'm going to be yanked out of context immediately, which is kind of why this was one of my fears about the movie, right? So my fear was that normie press, mainstream press, they were going to watch this movie, and the headline was going to be something along the lines of this: the Jones Plantation film exploits the horrors of slavery to make cheap libertarian points about anti-government. That is my fear and prediction. Has anything like that? I guess so. My question is: have you gotten any whiff of that since it's come out? Has any of the normies had time to see it, or is this all in my head and it's not happening? Like, I'm really hopeful.
So far, it's all in your head. I haven't heard any of that. I am absolutely sure that the bigger it gets, the more there's going to be an incentive for the formerly mainstream that isn't mainstream anymore to find some excuse to bash it, because they can't say they like it. They can't say it's good. They so how creative they're going to have to get to pretend to find something to complain about. And you can like complain about little technicalities because we didn't have $1 million budget, but like whoop-de-doo. Like that's true even of multi-million-dollar movies. But as far as an excuse to bash it, first of all, I haven't seen anybody try it yet. It would be interesting. However they do it, it'll be interesting. They'll have to try to bash it somehow. But if you look at the Sound of Freedom, the media was so happy to jump on the story of, one of the thousands of donors to Sound of Freedom was like arrested.
Oh no, did we lose him? Oh no. Oh, come back to us. Are you there?
Oh no.
I lost like the last 10 seconds. If you could just say maybe the last little bit again.
Okay. I was talking about how when Sound of Freedom came out, the media was so desperate to find something to bash that for. And what it was like, one of the donors was arrested for kidnapping. And you're like, oh my gosh, trafficking. Only it wasn't. It was a custody dispute of one of thousands of people who don't. So they're just stretching so far. So it's probably going to be like the third cousin twice removed of one of the people who ran the lights on the Jones plantation once said a naughty word somewhere. Like, it'll be interesting to see how they try to bash it. So your guess is as good as mine. I haven't seen it yet. I expect that for a while, the people who hate us just won't say anything because they don't want to draw attention to it. And if it gets big enough, then they're going to have to just make up the dumbest stuff imaginable to try to complain about it.
Well, and I don't think that they always, it's not as simple as a movie comes out and something negative has to be said about the movie. Like, there's a lot of critical media now, but I think a lot of people are sort of worn out on there being so much sensational and critical and almost like warlike media, where it's like one side of media is at war with the other, that I think everyone sort of expects there to be a bunch of negative stuff about anything that comes out, because it's like, everyone somewhere is trying to be offended about something. But the truth is when a movie is just different and weird enough, it like flies over people's normal sensors of getting triggered, and they don't get triggered at the same level, and they don't have anything to say because they're kind of too busy going, what just happened? And I think that a great example of that, and this is why, even though it's not a big budget movie and it can't compete with these movies in a real sense, one of the things that Jones Plantation has in common with some of the big budget movies that this applies to that were weird was the Matrix films and V for Vendetta, who, like, both those films had critiques of them. I know people critique them. I remember I got whiffs of it, and I remember it came after the wave of everybody going, whoa, and nobody listening to any of the media if they were saying anything negative about it. And then when critiques came, it was like years down the line, people were like, well, I mean, if we're going to philosophically pick these apart, they actually kind of suck. And everyone's like, yeah, but we don't care because we love the Matrix for what it is. It's fine. And so I feel like when something is weird and different and people are too busy going, whoa, something original and it made me think, then that's what they're reacting to more than they're being triggered. So my hope is that so far what this has started off doing, it seems like, is making people go, whoa, cool, different. Keeps doing that instead of triggering people.
Yeah, there's sort of two sides. There's like, CNN's not going to say anything nice about this. Like, and
if they say anything at all, like if they say anything,
they're going to have to fish for something to complain about. And the fact, you can watch something like The Matrix and not understand what it's actually bashing, and you can watch, a bunch of things it's really hard to watch the Jones Plantation and not understand that we are bashing the current system as it is right now, including all the things it does. So they'll find some stupid way. But what I love is that normal people who don't start with an agenda of trying to preserve the status quo, it's amazing that I've seen kind of no normal people even really complain about the content of the movie, because it's just a fictional story, sort of fictional. And because it's taking place in this different time and place, like they can say, well, that's not something our current leaders would do. Like they can think the stuff in their head, but there's so little to actually trigger or bother or offend people. I mean, there's things going on that they can go, oh, that's horrible, because they're supposed to think that while watching the movie. But I mean, so much of what comes out of the freedom movement, including most of what I say, is inherently going to trigger people. If I talk about like government's never legitimate, and here's the problem with that, like that's too much of a punching somebody in their, punch them right in their premise, and they get uncomfortable and they get defensive. Well, this movie doesn't do that. It tells a story. And how much of it they figure out and how much of it they relate to modern day life doesn't take away from the fact that I think this story is interesting in and of itself. So I think it's fun to see how much it's just flying under the radar for normal people, because I haven't heard of anybody getting offended. But because what would you be offended about? Like, what is there to get mad about? I mean, I'm sure some people will find something at some point.
His argument, I think,
I think you might be underestimating people's ability to get offended in 2023, Larkin. But yeah, let's
find a way.
Well, I will say this. Already a couple of people who count as normies, or they're on the line of they think like and are more like normies, have seen the movie and have given us their reactions to it, and they were just like, that was cool, that was interesting, that was different. And they even had like one of them, I won't say who, but one of them is a friend of a friend too, and like that friend was like, yeah, she knows who Larken is. So she just knew that when she knew that he was behind this movie, she was like kind of expecting this to be like some anarchist crap, like as in see it as like obvious some anarchist stuff, and it didn't come off at all like that. And so I think it doesn't register. It doesn't register.
It isn't that.
Right. And I think partly what's on our side is the fact that politics and what it does is so often it's triggering people because it's about telling people how to live their lives, right? So movies that have a left or right agenda are usually trying to be like, this is subtly what we think you should think. And then people are getting triggered and picking apart movies now because people are trying to tell each other how to live through their movies. We don't have to do that here. We just have to be like, look at all of this bullshit going on. Here it is. And we don't have to tell people how to live their lives because it's literally what anarchism is not about. So we can just go, this is what it is. Here it is. Sorry you don't like it. And everybody can just go, well, we can try to get mad that you pointed out what's going on, but it's hard to deny that this is kind of what's going on.
Yeah, because the movie doesn't tell what should be. It just gives a very behind the curtain view of what is. And anybody who watches that, if they grasp that, yeah, this is kind of what's going on, nobody's going to be pro that. Nobody's going to be like, you weren't fair to Mr. Smith. I think he meant well.
Mr. Smith is a nice guy, okay? He's Mr. a marginalized type. And
yeah. So now's your chance, guys. If you have any questions about the movie, if you have any feedback, like, here's what you do. If you have a question, put question in all capitals so I don't miss it. I'm watching like 4 different websites chat right now. We're on Odysee, DLive, Twitch, YouTube, and maybe even Rumble, I'm not sure. But put question in all caps so I see it going by. Put your question and we'll ask them. And if you just have feedback, if you just want to tell them what you thought, put like feedback in all caps and then write what you would like us to discuss. And if you are not respectful, I'll just ban you. And otherwise we'll talk about what you were to say. So, okay.
Weird. I'll just ban you. Okay.
Yeah, you don't get to be rude to my guests on my show in my house. That's not how this works. So
freedom of disassociation. Woohoo!
Imagine that. Yeah. So I went back and I watched the there was a Quentin Tarantino movie about slavery, and it was oh crap! Now my brain just totally forgot the name of the movie. Django Unchained. Thank you. And I was watching some of the after the movie interviews, and everybody was just like tiptoeing around on glass about the slavery topic and how they handled, being on an actual slave plantation, filming it, and just being, super precious about it. And that's what I was worried about. Like when I saw that, and I was like, oh boy, here the world is going to react like this. But so I guess you're saying they're going to react how they're going to react, and
the thing is, I mean, it's probably the bigger it gets, the more funny it's going to get, because there's myself and Andrew, the director, who's totally on board. He understands. So it isn't, any Hollywood studio would be like, we have to be really careful. Andrew and I are not careful about what we think. We say what we think. So if somebody comes along and says, well, like, we'll say what we think. Yeah, I actually found it kind of creepy filming onto literal old slave plantations. Both the interiors and exteriors were filmed in places where people thought they owned other people. And that's like about as horrible as you can possibly get. The opposite of self-ownership is slavery. Those are kind of the two options at the end of the day. And so the fact that so many people, instead of being able to have an honest discussion where they just talk about things, and yeah, you recognize evil and call evil evil, but like, well, we have to be super sensitive to everybody. Like, no, we don't. Like, to understand things and to fix the world, you have to be able to talk about stuff. And I think one of the things that makes the Jones Plantation stand out so much is the setting is a slave plantation. It's as horrible as you can get. And so it right off the bat, it's not going to be gentle. I've had, I think one person was like, oh, I was turned off by the depiction of violence. I was like, it was on a slave plantation. How nice do you think they were on slave plantations? So
have they seen any other
and tell them
movies,
definitely do not watch Django Unchained then.
Yeah, right.
Which is way worse.
In fact,
Don't
just stay
watch any
out of
Hollywood
movie
movies.
theaters at all. Like, just you can't handle movies. It's just not your thing.
Right.
No.
Oh, and the other one was somebody complaining about the vulgarity and the swearing. It's like, how nice do you think they were on slave plantations? So aside from just sort of random things like that, I think part of its strength is that we just barrel headlong into this setting where everybody can immediately recognize this is not good. This is not how society is supposed to be. And in that setting, you can learn a whole lot about the goings on that's the actual problem, whether you're talking about on a literal slave plantation or the political system today or whatever other setting. But if you sort of, the people who are like tiptoeing around on eggshells because they don't dare to have a discussion that's like blunt and honest, it's like, okay, well then you're not worth anything in the human discussion if you don't dare to actually say what you think.
But that's just a childish thing. Like, it's like you're not a grown up. Like, okay, come back to the table.
But that's
talk like
most adults now are children. They don't have a grown up conversation.
You're not supposed to say that out loud.
Yeah.
So, Great Wolf over on Odysee, where you should all be watching instead of YouTube, by the way, asks, will there be a version of the movie that uses Larken's original music?
Somebody else asked that too. Eventually I may want to do that if Andrew's okay with it. I probably won't do it anytime soon just because I don't want to detract from or distract from the official version of the movie. For like ahead of time I was talking about, I did a musical score for the whole thing. There's a couple little pieces of what I did that's still in there, but mostly Andrew being the director, he wanted a different sound and a different feel to it. And because he's the director, it's not up to me. So I don't want it to be a thing about, well, here's the version with it. So, I'll probably do that at some point, but not until it's, gone on for a while, because I don't want it to be a distraction from the official version of the movie and getting that out there as far as we can.
Okay, and he had second question, is there any chance of Jones Plantation making it to the big screen? Funny you should ask. I'd love to take my folks to see it in like AMC or Cinemax, etc.
Do you live near Dallas? There will be screenings in Dallas a week from today, in Atlanta and LA. I'm not sure the dates of those yet. I think the one in Los Angeles counts as the official premiere. Like, I don't know why there's a difference or technically what counts as what. But in addition to that, we are setting it up. We're figuring all the details out so that anybody can run it in a local theater. Now, we're not waiting around and expecting the chains to like pick it up themselves. Maybe that'll happen. I don't know what miracle would have to occur. But it seems like we can sort of bypass that because these days theaters are so desperate to make money that they're renting out theaters. We already did this in Phoenix, where we had a screening there, and we're just renting out a theater in Dallas too. And it's a real theater. It's a movie theater, but they're desperate enough that you can just say, all right, how much money does it take for us to just steal one of your theaters and show our own movie? And
so maybe we need to talk to AMC and Harkins and see is the answer.
Well,
I don't know.
We're setting up a thing so anybody can arrange to have that done if they like arrange the renting of a movie place.
Right.
If that starts to happen and starts to get an audience, I think then bigger chains might go, why aren't we just showing this and making more money ourselves? Because apparently, and so it's a little bit like the whole thing of getting it on Netflix or Amazon Prime. Like, you don't start there, but if you show a track record of enough people actually want to watch this, then they come to you. Otherwise, you get like a completely crummy deal. So I don't even think we're doing anything to try to push it on the main theaters yet. But if we start to have a track record of people showing up at theaters to the point that they go, maybe we can make money off of showing this, then probably their desire for evil capitalist profits will make them go, yeah, we'll show this thing. Like, if people will actually show up, then we will. But we don't have a specific plan at the moment to try to make them do it on their own, but we are putting together a package so anybody can arrange it in their own town to just rent a theater and show it themselves, and we'll help advertise it and stuff like that.
Okay. Another question from Lava Bubble. Will you release an album of your original score?
Oh, you could do that.
I might as well at some point. It'll be a little bit weird without a movie going along, because if you've noticed, custom scores sometimes just stop because something happens or drastically change mood. But yeah, at some point I might as well just release the music I made for it.
Well, that's exciting. Look at that, Lava Bubble. You did it. Good job. Good job. All right, cool. Well, that's exciting too. Let's move on to the next topic. Well, no, actually, we haven't really talked about how people have received it. How have normies that have seen the movie reacted to it, like in general?
So the first thing...
Did they come to you and they're like, well, anarchy it is?
No, because like I said, it doesn't actually explain what should be. It just shows very much what shouldn't be, but is right now. So this to me is a discussion starter for people rather than a discussion ender. It isn't like, now I understand everything about the world. It's more like, oh, now I'm creeped out with the current state of things. And the first thing I'd mention is something I basically already did mention, is that nobody seems to have been like offended or defensive, and different people sort of focus in on different things that they're like, hey, that represents, that's like our democratic system. And other people will be like, this is about our currency, right? And almost everybody is like, that was thought-provoking and that was different. And like, when we're hearing from people who showed it to normies, whether in their own house or they went to, one of the screenings, the normies seem to be like excited and eager to point out the analogies they noticed. And this is a huge psychological thing that, we also touch on that in Candles in the Dark. If somebody thinks they found their way to a piece of truth, they will eagerly embrace it and latch on and be all excited. If they feel like you hit them over the head with a piece of truth and told them what to think, they won't. And I'm already seeing that in responses from normies who are like, oh, this represents that because this is like that, because they're sort of figuring it out. And the fact that for people in the freedom movement, it's like, how hard was that to figure out? It's like 1 equals 1. But for people who don't think about this stuff, it is something their brain has to notice, like, oh, maybe this is what they're actually doing. And I've gotten a number of people who, mostly I get it secondhand from like the people I know who showed it to them, who get all excited and they get like interested in, oh yeah, this is like that, and that represents this. And so the fact that their brain had to like put 2 and 2 together, literally put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4, makes them feel more involved and engaged. And that's been the main thing I've seen, is people saying, well, it's thought-provoking and cool and interesting and different, which is a very important thing for a movie to be.
Also, everyone laughs at the spots that Larken and I laughed at when we watched the rough cut and we reacted to the movie. Everyone gets the things that like we were hoping people would kind of get, and it so far has included, like he said, it's included the normies, even though they're like, whoa, this is different. Like, it's a good different. They're like, the reactions has been like I could, the one person that came to the screening in Tempe, she was actually vocal from the audience. She was like, hi, I was like brought here by a friend, and I'm not like familiar necessarily with a bunch of this stuff, but that was really good. And she said that she really enjoyed it and it was a good time and it made her think. And my dad said it was thought provoking. Yeah, my mom liked it. The hair sniffing scene gets everybody. That gets everyone. Like,
that was a spoiler.
Yeah, we said spoilers. We said we were going to have them, so I'm allowed a couple.
Oh yeah,
that's not even
spoiler alert. Oh, I have a meme for this. No, I don't. My buttons are almost up. Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it yet, I guess watch this later.
Retroactive. I mean, that doesn't spoil a whole lot. It spoils about 3 seconds of it. So I think you can handle that.
Now that we're talking spoilers, the most on the nose part of the movie that just hit perfectly were the campaign videos by the 2 guys competing to get votes. God damn, that was hilarious. I was sitting with you when we were watching it at Acapulco, and I just was laughing my entire ass off loudly. That was so perfect. Well done. That was amazing.
And at every screening so far, the audience has just completely lost it. And
which is a good sign. That's
out of the blue, just broadsides you. And that Andrew totally gets credit for that idea, because that was actually a way to fix a problem that we didn't have enough footage of the 2 competing speeches that were supposed to happen between Jones and Johnson. And he's like, we have to convey these things somehow, and we didn't get enough good takes of enough of it to piece it together. So he came up with that. And the first time he said that, like, once again, if you see something in writing, he's like, we're going to just throw in a political ad. I'm like, what? No, you're not. What are you talking about?
You were like, what?
So, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, that's genius. And it's brilliant. And I like how the movie in several different places, like, as soon as you're starting to get a little bit comfortable with what you're watching, it just throws you out of your chair. It's like, now it's something completely different.
Yeah, it's like, no, never mind. Just kidding. Good night. You were no longer comfortable.
And everybody seems to just lose it over that. And there's something to get psychological here, there's something very powerful in having an audience able to laugh together. Because nobody out there feels attacked. They all recognize this is making fun of somebody who isn't us. And even if it's the guy you voted for, we're still okay with laughing about the fact that this is a very, like, for anything to be funny, it has to have a kernel of truth. Well, this has a mountain of truth. Everyone can immediately recognize it. And so even people who are like, well, maybe I would have voted for Mr. Johnson or Mr. Jones, they're still going to laugh their ass off, because it's just such an obvious, out of the blue slap in the face that everyone, like, nobody, you can't not recognize the meaning of it, and you can't not laugh at it the way it happened. And so I think there's real power in being able to get basically all of the victims of authoritarianism of all stripes and whatever they believe to suddenly be on the same page and able to laugh at their abusers.
And it's also hugely helpful that the abusers have done such a fine job of being such obvious assholes, but the left and the right are not like, if you're a status left and the left right and you're like still a left right at all, even a little bit, you're not like, ooh rah the left, ooh rah the right. You're like, I held my nose while I voted for my candidate, just barely. And I think I'm still left, but I'm not sure. Like that's an advantage we have, because then, like he said, people aren't like, oh, I'm being attacked. They're like, yeah, we all realize that we can laugh at this because we know that this is uncomfortably accurate, and we don't want to identify with that.
Yeah,
we don't like it.
And, even the ones we would have supported, that's still not us, and we're perfectly fine laughing at it. So.
Right.
Good times. Good times. Oh man. There's something else. Oh yeah. So at the end of the movie, every time I've watched it, the one character arc that I appreciated the most, let's say, and I don't even remember the character's name, but I think it might have been the character that had the most actual development, and it was low key. It was like subtle. But it was the guard. I don't know what was it Jimmy Jack? Yeah, like he started out being like just an asshole slaver, and then by the end of it, he picked up the little girl to hide her from what was going on, and he was like really starting to get disturbed by what he was seeing. Like, I really appreciated that character, and he's so behind the scenes. He's not like front and center at all, but I think he had the most character development maybe in the movie. I thought it was wild. Where did that, I just wanted to ask, like, where did that character come from? How did you write him in, and can you talk more about that character? There's a whole bunch.
Yeah. This isn't just a story about here's how evil people do stuff, because that's really important for people to understand, but it's just as important to understand how the normal people react to it. And some normal people react to it by hiding in a corner and trying not to make waves. And some react to it by standing up and yelling things through a megaphone and waving a sign around. And some people vote, and some people like don't do anything. And so I wanted to portray a whole bunch of different individuals that's how they react to authoritarianism, and it includes the enforcers. So Jimmy Jack starts, he even has the line of, I'm just doing my job. I know you all hate me, and I can see that, but I'm just doing my job. Like, where have we heard that a million billion times?
Yeah.
And yet, at the same time, I know a whole bunch of people who are former military and some who are even former cops who are now voluntarists and now realize, I wasn't one of the good guys. They're still people. And it doesn't mean they're good people, but the people who literally it was their job to whip slaves were still people. And it's so easy to just think, well, they're just totally evil. Let's not even think about it. Instead of going, what does it take to make somebody think that's okay and to do that? And so even making them human, like you have the all the way psychopaths, Mr. Smith, who it's like, okay, he just doesn't care. He has no empathy. He's just all the way a monster. But most of the enforcers of the monsters are still people. Now, they're messed up people. A lot of them are very bad people. They do very bad things, but they're still people. And I wanted to throw in a hint of the fact that they're trying to be the good guys too. Like, they fail so horribly, so often to be the good guys, and they make these lame excuses. But I wanted an example of even somebody who started in a position where you are the right hand of evil. Even those people, there is a chance that they can go, this isn't okay. And actually, this is a good time to do a segue into the fact that there's a novel that, in a novel you have way more room to get into that, where it gets way more into Jimmy Jack's internal turmoil and what he's thinking and how he's literally whipping other human beings and treating them like property. And along comes Mr. Smith and does things, and Jimmy Jack finds out along the way just how screwed up Mr. Smith is. And he can, in his own brain, go, well, I'm not that bad. It's like, you're pretty damn bad, But most people, unless they're total psychopaths, there's some point at which they say, well, I'm not that bad. I wouldn't do that. And then he starts to stand up. Now, does he have anything like coherent principles at the end? Like, who stinking knows? Probably not. Most people don't. But I wanted to give a sign of that potential for human awakening and moral awakening, including in people who have acted as thugs of the state. Because, like I said, I know a lot of people, especially former military, who now say, wow, I was just being an unthinking pawn of literally the worst people in the world. Thankfully, some of them just sort of did some irrelevant thing, that was just sort of indirectly. Some of them saw combat and looking back on it thought, I may have killed innocent people. And like, what do I do about that now? But to show the effect of authoritarianism on humanity, because even the enforcers, even when they're genuinely being evil, they're still people. And most of them are still trying to tell themselves that they're the good guys. And every once in a while they figure out, I'm not the good guy and this is not okay. And so Jimmy Jack is a fun character. And like I said, the novel has way more time to get into what he's thinking and how he justifies what he was before and yet condemns a worse version of it. How he can pretend that, well, I'm just doing my job and this is just how things are. But that, I wouldn't go that far. And the thing is, that's, you see a bunch of different characters that are doing that. Like, well, I'll complain, but I'm not going to actually do anything about it. And if this guy sticks his neck out, I'm going to hide in the background. Well, he gets whipped and stuff. I
think, too, for those that want to know, what is different about this villain than other villains? Because this is a movie where the villain's the star, and that doesn't happen very often in movies. It happens sometimes in Disney. Disney will make a villain cute and make them the star of the show, or Pixar or whatever. And I have a complaint about most villains that I've ever seen in movies is they're either the obvious villain that's horrific and awful, and they're doing awful, inexplicable things, but it's not really explained. They never really spell out, and it's never really explained.
We're just being evil for no reason.
What makes them do what they do, or why they're doing what they do. Or it's the other degree entirely. It's like slapstick and cute and funny. It's like, oh, you're a villain. Oh, it's adorable, and you're not that good at it. And it's like, okay, but like on this whole spectrum, there's a very real kind of villain, and they've existed in the world, and they manipulate a lot of other people who go along with them. And it's like a lot of government, a lot of politicians, a lot of people in government, they aren't necessarily the Mr. Smiths, but they're running a system that was built by people that think exactly like the Mr. Smiths of the world. And even if those people aren't necessarily the ones that are the puppets because they're not the Mr. Joneses, there's still a mindset that's out there, and they don't get represented like ever that I've seen, where it shows the actions of the person and then the behind the scenes actual explanation from the villain. This is what I'm doing, and this is why.
What was the character's name again?
Jimmy Jack is
Jimmy Jack,
overseer.
He was, I mean,
and by the way, that's Andrew playing that. That's the director playing Jimmy Jack.
Yeah. And so like he was also the only ray of hope in the movie. And I'm so glad I asked this question, because I thought that he was literally there just to make the ending not a complete hopeless dumpster fire. Because like that's kind of where it leaves us. It's like, yep, that's how it works. Good luck.
Have a nice day. Well, we'll throw in this.
But
since you brought that up.
But there was this one character that there was this little ray of light at the end where he was like, holy crap, we might not be completely screwed. So maybe that's why I fixated on that character so much.
Yeah, in the novel, you get way more of that. Like the ending of the novel, because first of all, it's a movie, so you can only fit so much into it. Like, I love the movie for what it is. It's just you can fit way more in a novel, so I love the fact that there's going to be both. The novel has way more time to get into a bunch of stuff and what's going on in Jimmy Jack's head and what happens to Sarah. And I won't give any more specifics about the novel, but there was supposed to be more of that in the movie.
Yeah. And
there were a bunch of subplots that we don't have time for that, or it's going to be a 7-hour movie. So that got cut out. So that one scene Jimmy Jack shows up to pick her up, so she didn't have to, watch the horrible stuff going on. I was hoping, people could sort of extrapolate from that, he's sort of developed a heart a little bit along the way. And a number of people noticed it just from that little thing. And so the novel can get way more into, well, what happened next and what was going through his head this whole time, and Jimmy Jack's head. But I'm glad that people did notice that, there was that little ray of hope in an otherwise not pleasant situation, to do a rather drastic understatement about it.
So one more question for me about that character, and then I promise we'll move on. Was Jimmy Jack the one that killed the girl, the daughter, or was that
spoiler alert?
Oh yeah, spoiler alert. Okay.
Smith did that himself.
Okay.
And made Jimmy Jack burn her corpse.
Clean it up. Okay. I just, because those were really intense. Anytime anything happens to children in movies, I just get immediately emotionally torn apart. So it was really important to me to know who did that.
And there's a short exchange where they're standing. Spoiler alert! They're standing there. Smith walks up, and Jimmy Jack's looking down when it reveals that the girl was murdered, and Jimmy Jack's like, Smith doesn't say what happened, but Jimmy Jack isn't pretending. Yeah, I guess it is a little bit ambiguous in the movie. You can't all the way tell that he didn't do it, but he didn't. But he later says, when he's talking to Samuel, he goes, and the whole thing of like, I know you hate me and I'm just doing my job, but I'll never mess with kids.
Okay.
Like,
okay. Yeah.
To him, that's the delineating. Like, I would never do that. Like, I'll
He's
literally
like,
whip you like almost to death for not obeying this evil psycho, but I won't do that thing over there. And so that's how, in his mind, he distinguishes himself from, I'm just obeying orders, but that I wouldn't do.
Yeah, he's like, I think the line was like, I never mess with kids.
Yeah. But
and
kids,
I was like,
I never mess with kids.
I was like, okay.
And so, a glimpse of humanity, in the mind of a otherwise mindless order obeyer, like that little glimpse of hope. And so there's a whole lot of representations of mostly the failings of humanity and a few little traces of hope and what humanity is supposed to be.
Did you appreciate the nod, or maybe it was a smack, at the third party?
Noah?
The Libertarian Party, the third party of the attempt to get your person on the throne.
I didn't connect him to the Libertarian Party. I feel like an idiot now for not having made that connection. But holy crap. You're right. Now I'm going to have to go rewatch the movie just to catch that. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, Noah's little speech. And again, the novel can get into a little bit more detail because Smith, because they come inside and Jones is like, why did you let him run at all? Like, what if he wins? And Smith explains why he let him do that. And he didn't just let him. It was his idea for Noah to do that. And he explains why, and I hope that people who still vote third party, like they put two and two together and go, damn it.
Oh, we're Noah.
Because it's just part of the puppet show. And, in the novel, Smith explains more why it's important to be able to do that. Like for he's talking about the people who aren't going to be satisfied choosing between you, Jones, and Johnson.
Maybe
we have to give them some outlet. It doesn't do any good.
maybe I didn't make the connection because the Libertarian Party doesn't get invited to the debates. they wouldn't have even been on stage. That's maybe why I didn't make that.
That's accurate.
But notice, there's so many little things in there in the movie that, I think somebody could watch it 10 times and still not catch anything. I'll give this one away for the observant people. So at the beginning of Noah's speech, Smith says, he's like, I has no experience running a plantation, but okay. Noah, you have 2 minutes.
He
And
gives
then
him
Noah's,
2 minutes.
he gives him less than a minute and cuts him off.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, this isn't supposed to be fair. We don't care what you have to say. We're going to let you do enough so they get excited and accomplish nothing. And then we show how completely worthless and pointless your whole campaign is. And everybody feels let down and bummed out. And, oh, well, I guess there's nothing to do. So just the little things like he didn't nearly give him 2 whole minutes. And nobody doubted, like nobody questioned, nobody even noticed. It just when he says, oh, that's 2 minutes, he goes, oh, I guess I have to stop now because I'm playing by their rules.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing of like we're just playing their game. Like you're playing a mathematically stupid losing game. Like you can't win in this game.
And they only let you play to the extent that you are guaranteed to accomplish nothing.
It's everything I've been raging about on Twitter the past week. In fact, there's like this big Libertarian Party drama happening, and I just keep making fun of them. I'm like, you guys, this is dumb. Stop, please. You're making yourself look worse. Quit it. There's a powerful thing that I just want all these people involved in politics to understand. And it's one of the things you taught me when I started running for not governor of Texas. And it was that you don't get freedom from voting. You get freedom by taking it. And any Libertarian Party candidate that isn't yelling that the whole time they're running has got it wrong. They're doing it wrong. They've been sucked into the system. They're playing the game. Yeah. And all they're going to do is just suck in a bunch of well-meaning people with free time on their hands and just shit it away. Like, they're not going to... I'm going to go... I'm ranting again.
I promise to... Like, yeah, you already failed.
You already
You promised to what?
Man.
Use my magic scepter of power to... Yeah, no, shut up.
Yeah. Well, and I also point out, like, you literally can't win, because if you win, you lose. Because if people think, cool, I got my freedom because I got a guy that was my guy on a throne, and he told all of us, everyone go home, you're free.
We're allowed.
So now I'm free.
A little bit.
Cool.
It's like that Rick and Morty meme. Have you seen the Rick and Morty meme where he walks out of the adult daycare and the daycare? Do you remember what I'm talking about? And the daycare owner's like, that was always allowed. do you know the meme I'm talking about?
Yes.
He's like, I'm leaving, and he like trounces out of the daycare, and the lady's like, that was always allowed. It's like that's what you allowed. Yeah.
And there's a longer discussion in the novel, Smith talking to Jones and Johnson about why he wanted Noah to do that, and the psychology behind how do you use up the time and energy of those who still have a tendency to be disobedient and rebellious in a way that doesn't actually threaten the system in the slightest, and wears them out and like, again, gives them the illusion that there's something they can do. But you have to do it within these rules, which guarantee that you're not going to get anything out of it. And so there's a fun discussion in the novel describing the deeper psychology of why they have to allow that in the game, and then make it utterly impossible for anybody who actually has anything close to a principle to win. I mean, if you all the way have a principle, you don't run in the first place. But and so it's, once again, it's another thing that you can dive deeper in the context of a book than you can in a movie. But like, even in the movie, we had to put in the Noah campaign speech, and they start getting riled up, and he's like, we should be allowed to keep more of what we earn, and and
then he's like, okay, you're done.
Your 2 minutes is over.
Right, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Get out.
Crashes it, ruins all his rhythm and everything, and makes a fool of him, and he just sort of slinks away.
Yep. Lava Bubble asks, why does Mr. Smith have a snake earpiece?
I think Andrew just thought that was cool. He was originally going to have a serpent ring, but I think we couldn't find one in time. And there is some, not super brief, slightly brief, if that's a thing, reference to Smith being into the occult. That I didn't want to dwell on too long, but I was happy, and Andrew wanted that in there, and I was happy to have a mention of it just to because I want people to be able to think, how messed up are these people? Like, is it just, they're sort of heartless and conniving, or are they all the way that demented? And yeah, some of them are all the way that demented. But I didn't want it to be so front and center that people think, it's about Satanism is the real message. No, it's a thing dropped in there to make people think, how screwed up are they? But at the end of the day, that doesn't even particularly matter. Like, understanding how the tricks work make the tricks not work anymore, whether they're well-intentioned or, complete dark occult psychos or whatever combination thereof. So I didn't want that to be like the overarching message, because it isn't nearly.
It was so brief that I was almost like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
It was just like all of a sudden, the movie's rolling along, and then boom, we're like, he's whipping himself and chanting and stuff. I was like, hold on, that escalated quickly, and then it just it just went back on like nothing happened. It's like, okay, what just happened here?
All right. It's another example of where the movie just sort of out of the blue throws you out of your chair every once in a while, just to make you go, what? Wait, what? Where did that come from? Well, we're just not going to tell you.
Robert says he just had a showing of Jones Plantation to 4 normies. 2 of them now want to read The Most Dangerous Superstition. Let us know in the comments how they liked it. Like, what was their feedback?
Because this is early on, so I'm dying to hear feedback from people I know who've shown it to people, and I'm getting some of that already. But like, it hasn't been out that long, so it's the more the merrier to find how this is actually striking people and what they notice, what they sort of focus in on, what they find interesting, what they completely miss. Voluntarists may notice, hey, they seem to totally not get this and this and this, but they totally saw that meant that. And so yeah, if people want to let me know what the normies noticed, how they responded, and what they thought of it, by all means.
And I'm going to be bringing my portable podcast setup to the showing, hopefully. And if there's any normies there that are willing to talk about it afterwards, I'm kind of looking forward to prodding some of them on their way out to see what their takeaways was. I think that'll be fun.
That'd be cool.
I want to talk about the novel, because this is really, 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 really cool. The novel wasn't even on the timeline to happen until the movie was being made, right? Can you tell? We had already talked about this a little bit previously in our last interview at Anarchapulco, but I think it deserves a little more attention now. Tell us, like, where the novel came from.
We were in the middle of shooting. It was a 17-day shoot for the entire movie, interiors and exteriors, down in Mississippi and Louisiana, 2 different plantations, one for interior, one for exterior. I was already like dying of sleep deprivation, because every night we were doing like rewrites of the scenes for the next day to shorten them and alter things and take things out. And I was getting really frustrated by the things that had to get cut from the movie. And the thing is, they totally had to get cut from the movie. I'm not like, he should put those back in. No, Andrew did exactly what should have happened for the movie. But I was still like attached to a bunch of the subplots, and there's a few characters that don't show up at all and things like that. I was like, yeah, but that's an important point. And I had to just come to grips with the fact that, yeah, there's 8,000 important points and you can't fit them in a normal movie. And so in the middle of shooting, when I'm already sleep deprived, it suddenly occurred to me, I'm going to write a novel of the whole thing, and I'm going to put back in everything, the things that had to be cut and should have been cut and were cut, because they don't fit in a movie. They fit in a book. And there's a whole bunch more you can get into psychology and like inner thoughts that somebody's having, and back and forth. Like in a movie, you want to sort of get the dialogue as concentrated as possible and mostly be showing stuff instead of just watching people babble at each other. But in the case of a novel, that's what a novel's for, is people babbling at each other. So it suddenly occurred to me, the movie should do what a movie should do, and the novel should do what a novel can do. And I actually finished the rough draft of the novel before we finished shooting. So that was in the span of maybe 10 days. So every night I was staying up too late doing rewrites of the scenes for the next day and then working on the novel. And that, to me, at the time, that was just therapy. So now when it's like, well, this character is getting cut entirely, like there's a spy for Mr. Smith, one of the slaves he pays to spy on the others. And it was like, and we even had like the actor to play him, and we're like, oh, it sucks because that would have been so cool, but it doesn't fit. We have to shorten this.
Yeah,
so
I think
I'm like, okay.
the story you told me at Anarchast was something like, you were busting ass into the late hours of the night, staying up writing this stuff, and you'd write, 3 pages of, brilliant content, and then you'd take it, and Andrew would be like, okay, now do that again with only a paragraph or something. And then
Yep.
like the way you were describing the story, it just felt like, oh, Andrew just stabbed you a few times a day. That's kind of what it seemed like was going on. And then you'd limp back and then you'd limp back to your, where your room where you were staying, bleeding to death, and you'd be like, and so you and I bet you even made that sound actually. Yeah.
Like, I can't stress enough the difference between like the content heavy writer brain and the brain that has to think about making a movie for the public to watch with the right amount of content, because movies just don't fit what the brain and the writer brain that wants to write something that's like a thinker, like there's content, there's lots of thoughts here. Like, movies can't contain that. And like, one of the things that was kind of funnier now that we're not living it, but a little bit amusing to hear a lot was Larken constantly telling me, see, this is why writers aren't normally allowed on set.
See all these stab wounds? See all these stab wounds? This is why I'm not supposed to be here.
The thing is, I think it helped that I was there, because I was doing rewrites, and I was like, okay, inside the confines of making this 5-page thing into 2 sentences, well, that sucks, but I'll do the best I can. And only once did I actually yell at Andrew on set because I was so pissed off, because he literally went to shoot a scene and had taken out a major part that I didn't even know about. And I'm like, what happened to that entire subplot? It's like really important. And the thing is, in retrospect, I'm really glad he did that. It might have been nicer to know about it before we were shooting it, but I mean, it was such a circus that, like, the fact that it happened at all is just a miracle. Like, we were just randomly changing things on the fly constantly, so I can't even complain about that. But that very much needed it. There's something that's still in the novel that is significantly darker than what is in the movie. Which, if you've seen the movie, it's quite an accomplishment. But it just didn't fit the character that had become Mr. Jones, and it made it get too dark and horrible. Like, Mr. Jones is this awesome character played by Lee Gallman, he goes by, and who is not a professional actor. He'd never done acting before. He has a podcast called The Quash. He's like, he knows of me and is in the freedom movement or whatever you want to call it, and did an awesome job. And the thing is, he's the Mr. Jones he created is such a lovable, hateable character. Like, he's a piece of crap. He's a slave owner, but he's like entertaining and funny in a bunch of ways, like accidentally funny. He's not, the character isn't trying to be funny,
right?
But it didn't really fit to have that scene in there. But that was sort of the final straw to me that made me think, I'm going to write a novel, because I'm going to put that stuff back in. So that was,
I mean, I can totally see
it.
That would be me. Yeah. Like, if I was in that position getting stabbed over that daily, I would just go back to my room, slam them, real, oh, fuck you, I'm going to make a novel. And that seems like perfect.
That, although it was this weird combination of fuck you, but also I'm going to do all the rewrites you just suggested, and then I'm going to write my novel.
And then you can shove it up your ass. Yeah.
It's one of those things where I really thought I wanted to be, like, you think you want to be a part of something because you're like, it's an indie movie, they're shooting the movie, it's it's the thing coming to fruition of my husband's hard work. And then my husband's like calling me from the set, and I hadn't flown out yet to do my little scene that I'm in for 2 seconds, and he's calling me, and everything he's telling me, I'm just like, okay, so 1, really glad I'm not there, actually. 2, please, you and Andrew, make sure you don't kill yourselves making this movie.
Yeah, Andrew and I both almost like died from sleep deprivation.
Oh.
We were both just a wreck I was a wreck halfway through from getting no sleep for almost a week in a row, and Andrew was just torturing the crap out of himself. Like with that budget, like I know I've bragged on his behalf, and I'm going to do it again. Because with that budget, there's a whole bunch of like, where's your art department? We don't have one. Andrew's the art department. Where's your this department? We don't have
Andrew.
one. Andrew's that. Andrew's just the department. Like, we
Andrew
don't have money for all that stuff. So there were so many things that he was handling that a director is not supposed to have to handle. And so he's just including like figuring out catering and arranging flights for people and stuff, all the time consuming, annoying stuff that you're supposed to have assistants for. And we didn't have the money. And so he was doing so much that by the time the shoot was done, he was just, by then I had started my recovery because I got a little bit of sleep then, and he was just on the brink of death. And then we had to drive back to Phoenix because we drove out there in his little clown car at the time with a snake in a box, because the snake in the movie is mine. It's Snecky, who's right in our living room right now.
I have to say shout out to Doug, because Doug was Andrew's right-hand man, and Doug put in an insane amount of work. Volunteer the entire time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So he was not being paid for any of his time.
I don't think it would have happened with him. So Doug, like, he's an awesome dude. And basically, I've retroactively viewed his job as keep your shit together when nobody else does.
Yeah.
Like, Andrew's losing his shit. Everybody's falling apart. And Doug is like, okay, what do we need to do this? And just like matter of fact and do it and get it done. And so that's, the people who can keep doing that in a setting like that, I'm not sure there would be a movie without Doug doing the stuff that, some of it behind the scenes, some of it, he's on there and helping to direct and helping set things up and helping in a million different ways. So, he's way up there in the ranks of how much people put in, and we appreciate it from everybody, to the person who donated $1 to Andrew, who just about killed himself, to make the thing happen. But there were so many people involved in making it happen. But the fact that the movie is way better than what I had even hoped it would be, as far as I'm concerned, because a bunch of that I couldn't imagine. I'm not a director. I wouldn't have made it anywhere near that good. And at the same time, I'm like, I need to write a novel, because there's stuff I need to say somewhere. It doesn't have to be in the movie. It shouldn't be in the movie. It doesn't fit in the movie, but somewhere I still want to say this stuff. So there's actually like a list of things that are in the novel that aren't in the movie, but they mostly match. There's a couple little plot differences that had to actually be changed, but minor things, but mostly the stories match. So they're not like competing versions of what happened. They're different mediums, and different mediums do different things better.
How close to being complete is the novel at this point?
The novel is complete. We're getting ready to print it.
Oh, crap. Cool.
People can pre-order copies at thejonesplantation.com. They're seeing how many people pre-order, because the more money you raise ahead of time, the bigger printing you can do and the better a deal you get per book. So they're gearing up for the first printing of that, but that's finished. The cover art and everything's ready to go to the printers as soon as they give the go-ahead. So that's done too. And that's pretty weird. I think, what was it? Somebody pointed out like Space Odyssey, 2010. What's the name of the movie?
2001, A Space Odyssey.
2001, A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Apparently there was a book version of it by the same people. I forget the order of how it happened. So other than that, somebody mentioning that, of like, when has this ever happened before, that a book and a movie come out at almost the same time by the same people? Not just somebody wrote a book and 20 years later some other people made a movie out of it. So so that makes it kind of weird. There's a lot of weird and unusual things about this project that I like. I like that it doesn't at all fit the normal template.
Well, that's epic news, man. So the movie's already out. The book's coming out. How long until the book is on sale?
I don't know the schedule of printing. They haven't run the first print yet, and I don't know how many weeks behind the printers are at this point. So I don't even have a guess. But if you go to the thejonesplantation.com, that's where people can pre-order. And when there are updates on what's going on, that's where they'll be posted for the novel, which is handled completely by different people than are handling the movie. So every once in a while, somebody will email one asking about the other, and they're like, we have nothing to do with that. Go ask them.
Okay.
So we're just multitasking maniacs.
Last call for questions. We're about to wrap up, but I got to ask, what about an audiobook?
Yeah, Patrick. What about an audiobook? I know this guy who has an awesome voice, and he has all the equipment, and he knows how to do audio. In fact, he did the audiobook of The Most Dangerous Superstition. I'm thinking of asking him if he would do the audiobook of the Jones Plantation novel. Do you happen to have any connection to this guy?
I am so freaking psyched for multiple reasons. Number one, the content is obviously insane, but I've never done a novel. I've never done characters before. I've always, all the audiobooks that I've done, I think I've done 7 now, they've all been sort of treatises on philosophy or just like the Most Dangerous Superstition, where you're just teaching people things. There's no characters involved. There's no novel or story. I am so freaking excited to try it.
Even in that, you had trouble getting too fired up, right?
Yes. Yes. I remember talking about that. I'm in my audio booth, like yelling, and it's a soundproof box. And my wife is downstairs, and she can hear me outside the soundproof box, because it's not yelling like anger, it's preaching. I'm like preaching like I'm on a pulpit in my audio booth, and I had to re-record like entire swaths of it. Just because I was on fire. I was filled with the Spirit. So just on it, man.
You went full preacher on the freaking podium, at the podium. I'm like, all right, now.
Well, that's good stuff to do.
Yeah, so I'm a little intimidated because I've never done characters before, except for, I read stories to my kids every night, and I have all kinds of wacky voices. So that's my only experience with this, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully you can coach it.
It'll work.
And hopefully you'll be able to come and actually do the Mr. Smith voice.
It would be so fun to be Mr. Smith.
Cool.
Because it's his language is so much the message and so precise and careful that the meaning of it is so, very specific. Every word, every gesture, every tone of voice he uses is by design to manipulate and control the people around him. And so that would be fun to be the voice of him for the audiobook. If it works.
Lava Bubble asks, how long is the novel?
It's only 160 pages, so that's not very long for a novel, but there are plenty that are shorter than that, but it's not a huge novel. I think 200 is kind of average. Mm-hmm. So it's a short novel, and it's made to, even though it's, the subject matter, like I said, gets even a little bit darker than the movie does. But I like writing down at a level where you don't have to have a PhD to be able to read my books. And some people think, like, well, that must just be because you're stupid. And like, no, I want this to be compatible with almost everybody who knows how to read, instead of, I'm going to write so hoity-toity that you have to read every sentence 5 times to figure out what the hell I was trying to say. So it's pretty simple reading, and it's not that long a book, but there's a lot of concentrated stuff in there. In the book, for a while, it matches pretty close to the movie. And as it goes along, that's when it starts to expand more and more, and you get more and more in depth, and starts to include characters and subplots and things happening that don't actually happen in the movie, but add to the sort of the message and the philosophical lesson of authoritarianism 101. Or 301, or whatever level of sophistication it is.
Also, we got t-shirts.
Where can I get one of those? Here.
You can't yet. Ta-da!
Oh, hold on. I got the green screen on you. Hold on. You're partially invisible. Give me 1 second.
All right. Yeah, because we have green on it.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Oh, you're still see-through. That's all right. People get it.
That's okay. People will figure it out. So that's a really cool poster that a internationally known poster guy made. Sean D'Anconia.
There we go.
I think I got that right. made the really cool poster, and we made some shirts out of it. They aren't actually for sale, but we're going to have some of them at the Dallas screening. And at some point they will be for sale, and as will the poster and other, the official poster and then the artistic poster, because there's two different ones. And so, but yeah, at the moment, these shirts don't really exist. And the only people who will be able to get them in the next week are people who show up at the Dallas screening.
If you can, some there. If you can have somebody bring me one of the flags that you guys are selling, I will buy it. I want a flag badly.
Yeah.
Those are already for sale on the site. So I'll see about Andrew bringing some along. I'm not even sure where they physically are at the moment, because like different people drop shipped from different. I don't know what's going on. There's such a circus going on. And for those who are, people are like, when's the DVD coming out? Like, as fast as we can. When are the shirts coming out? As fast as we can.
Yeah, there isn't like a team of people on this, guys. There's just like a couple of people. Like, that's it. And
so as fast
they
as we
have
can,
lives, so it's as fast as people can get stuff out. It's not like this is some big company. Like, this isn't Hollywood. Like, the DVD will release as soon as I wanted to, right?
But there will be shirts, and there will be posters, and there will be DVD, and there will be Blu-ray, and there will be a way for people to show it at their local theater, and there will be all sorts of stuff as fast as we humanly can. Or inhumanly can. So
Green Country says the flag is magical. Every time I hold it up, people cheer. Deadeye loves the shirt. Voluntarious Girl says tank tops would be hot.
Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe we should tell t-shirt people that tank tops would be good.
Yeah.
We get some of those made.
All right, cool.
Might have to do that. Add that to the list.
Yeah.
Guys,
infinite list.
I'll give you the last word. We've kind of already shouted out everything several times, but is there anything else that you'd like to say before we go?
I will say this, which is I really like this movie for two reasons, and then the novel too, in its own way. First and foremost, I want pro-freedom people who already know this stuff to go, yeah, this is awesome, this is so cool, the way it says it is so great and perfect. But if you stop there, what's the stinking point? You already knew that stuff. Even if you enjoy watching it or you like how it's presented, as far as I'm concerned, I wanted this stuff made as a vehicle through which to talk to the rest of the world. And I think the movie is really good for that, because it delivers the ideas in a way that I don't think is going to make almost anybody like defensive and on edge. It may make them uncomfortable if they watch and aren't sure if they would have been on the right side. It's supposed to do that. And same thing with the novel. Is the point of almost everything I do is to try to get these ideas to all the people who don't yet think about them, and the people who aren't going to read a 500-page treatise on Austrian economics, but they'll watch a movie. Maybe they'll even read a book if they're one of those weird people who still know how to read. And so, like, I want pro-freedom people to enjoy it, and then I want them to make use of it, because the goal here isn't for us to sit in a corner and tell each other how right we are. It's to get the rest of the world to stop advocating literally their own enslavement.
All right. Amanda, do you have anything?
Honestly, that's it. Other than just when you're out, just you could randomly ask people the way you do other people, have you seen that movie, The Jones Plantation? Oh, is it in theater? No, but you can watch it online at jonesplantationfilm.com.
And just drop comments online, and yeah.
I have seen there's a Twitter account. I don't know who's running the Twitter account for it, but they're sharing clips of the movie. That would be great for you guys to, retweet or whatever, repost, re-X, whatever they're calling it now. That's a good way to get it out too. All right, cool. Larken, I'll see you in about a week, and we're going to have the showing. Guys, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for hanging out and watching. Great chat, great questions. Until next time, peace, love, and anarchy.
Anarchy.